Arcadia. Out of all of the analog horrors I've covered in videos so far, Arcadia is pretty handily the least well known. It definitely had a bit of a boom when people started talking about how underrated it is, but it's still a little obscure. So after having it recommended, I decided that it'd be an interesting one to cover and watch through all of the videos currently uploaded. That's everything from Deep Sea Live to 1994. And yeah, it was good. I don't think that it's as perfect or as fantastic as many others seem to, but I do think there's lots of interesting things to say about it. This video won't be explaining my theories or what I think's going on, since there are already tons of multi-hour long analyses that do that much better than I could, so instead I'm going to focus on the quality. How much did I enjoy it, what didn't work, that kind of thing. So let's just get into it. Arcadia has a pretty interesting structure. Most analog horrors end up falling into a kind of anthology format with a greater narrative going underneath the surface. These are your Jackson Marys and Gemini Home Entertainment, or your Bruces and Vincents in Vita Canis. Arcadia, on the other hand, seems to be focused mainly on the story. In the world of the series, Arcadia is a TV station. Usually in this situation, all of the videos would be broadcasts from the channel. However, the series has had a lot of footage that, while still being from the world, wouldn't have been broadcasted, like found footage or classified documents. This means that the story is a bit less immersion, but has the upsides of getting more creative liberties. This can work really well. My all-time favourite analog horror, the Mandela Catalogue, uses this wonderfully, telling a story with randomly assorted footage from the universe. I think that Arcadia executed this kind of format well, but not completely perfectly. The main issue that comes from a more story-centric analog horror is that the world building and finer details can sometimes feel a little underdeveloped, and that's kinda what's happening here. Don't get me wrong, the concept of parallel universe versions of people is confronting, and the instances we get to see of these creatures are fantastic, but I can't deny that it would have had more impact if we knew just a few small details about these things. There are some episodes that seem kinda rehashy and don't add all that much to what's going on, even if they are good, such as The Forest or paid programming. Analog horror as a medium already has a lot of silence and dead space, so it's important to keep the story chugging along, and this one could have improved in that sense. However, if we stay on the concept of its structure, I do very much appreciate the kind of videos that it used to get the story across. Analog horrors can pick many different kinds of ways to tell the story, like through phone calls, experiment reports, news feeds, and tons of other things, and I think that this one stitches these really nicely. Even when the story can feel stagnant, the way you get to see this world doesn't, constantly shifting between Arcadia channel broadcasts, found footage, and instructional tapes. It's designed really well, and you can always tell what's going on, except of course when it's supposed to be tricking you. I think that the one that does this the best is The Farm, probably my favourite episode in the series. It transitions in between footnotes, gameplay, and found footage really well, using not much more than text fonts and a little bit of explanation at the start. It ties together into a really interesting story that requires you to put the pieces together, making great use of the analog horror format. Moving away from the execution though, we have the other main interesting point about this series, the idea behind it all. I think it's really creative and enticing. As a reminder, the threat in this series are beings from parallel universes which can access Earth through a failed direct connection attempt and other paranormal means. This is a super cool idea, and it's introduced very well. It's probably a step above the concepts of other analog horrors, because parallel universes are things that the average person would already know of, but the actual details of them are obviously completely unknown. It allows for tons of creative ideas, parallel versions of people, confusion, and mystery. The largest problem with this idea on paper is that it would be hard to explain in an analog horror format. But that was also avoided with The Signal, which is just a 10-minute video explaining rather clearly what happened and what it means, which was a great addition. I think for a parallel universe storyline, there are enough paths to go down that a solid groundwork keeps the mystery intact. So, the idea behind the story is good. Is the story itself also good? Yeah, for the most part. I honestly think that it was best in the most recent video as of writing this, 1994. It's an instructional video, presumably from another universe, that enslaves people who enter their own universe. It's super bleak and confronting and aggressively dehumanizing. It reminds me a lot of Contingency from Local 58, which is a massive compliment. It's also a really creative way of looking at the multiverse, ignoring our own world and considering how other worlds would react to the opportunity of gaining new people. The other episodes also do a good job with it, though admittedly to a lesser extent. Honestly, I really want to learn more about the concept. A lot of the conflict seems to be spurred on by the characters, like Ian's backstory or the bald section of Alaska. This is okay, I like the characters and it's nice to have more of a realistic worldwide reaction in an analog horror, but it leaves the actual danger to feel kind of underdeveloped. It's obviously important to keep an element of the unknown in there, but the unknown elements in this one weren't all that scary in my opinion, just kinda confusing. I'm hoping we'll get to learn more about it in the future, which is what 1994 seemed to be doing, but as of right now, our main clues are that dog motif and alternate versions of people, it's just so funny how many analog horrors rely on humanoid but not human creatures as their villains. More than half of the ones I've covered do. That actually is my final issue with the series. This is relatively small, so I won't go on about it too much, but this series feels derivative of others and I don't understand why. Namely, it has some religious imagery in the second half and that shot of the moon that pops up a few times. These things hardly show up, but it was still really annoying when they did. Some analog horrors pull off religion, like the Boy Would Want a Mandela catalog, but this one just felt like it was absent-mindedly tugging at heartstrings. The shot of the moon is cool when we learn what that speck next to it is, but it just felt way too much like Gemini and Local 58 for it not to be kinda frustrating when it did show up. Like I said, small things, but they did put a sour taste in my mouth and cheapen the series just a little. Anyways, we can move on from those now, and with them, we've covered my overarching issues and compliments surrounding the story. So let's move on to the individual episodes. I'm going to say that my favourite was The Farm, but other close ones were 1994, Deep Sea Live, and Monsters. The Farm is obviously one of the longest episodes, second to only The Forest, and it earns its length. It had itself a solid pace that kept making things slowly worse and worse, and it forced you to stay focused as the story got confusing, but still accessible. The visual design of the video game was really good, and this one is some of the most effective horror in the series. There are the more subtle things like the dangerous messaging of this warning, and then the shockingly in-your-face things like this moment with the dog. Gee willikers, that was a well-earned jump scare. I guess it got a little generic near the end, but I'm guessing that I'll appreciate it more when we get more information on what was speaking to Ian in this scene. Anyways, 1994 was also really great. It seems to be setting up a new arc for this series, and wow, I am really excited for what this world has to offer. It was dark and harrowing, using the nostalgic and comforting analog aesthetic as an awesome parallel to the horrors it was explaining to you. ChillingAbyss has definitely still got it. Deep Sea Live, specifically the new one, wasn't anything insane, but it works so well because it doesn't push boundaries. It's just a great introduction to the world with a scary premise, nice visuals, and a sweet as hell jump scare at the end. And finally, Monsters, which had the most interesting story in my opinion. It delves into Ian's past, Dr. Walker's past, and has some great imagery to boot. It doesn't stand out as much as the other three, but it's still an awesome entry. There aren't really any standout bad videos, though paid programming was probably the main one that left me with the feeling of, why did we need this? It had great technical skill and a build of tension, but it just didn't really explore the world or story all that much in my opinion, so I guess I'd call that one my least favourite. Also, that homeowner made such a comically bad decision that it felt like I was watching Scrimblow tapes. The main other episode that I thought was kind of interesting to bring up was The Forest. I'm really conflicted on this one. On the one hand, it's by far the most impressive video on the catalogue. It's the longest at 26 minutes, is almost always stop motion animation, and has a very ambitious analog horror idea, telling some kind of a fairy tale. I was originally confused about what it added, thinking it was just a metaphor for the series. Nowadays though, I get the impression that it, like the show in universe, is closing off a season. It's saying that Ian Parker and maybe even Earth's story is over now, and we're moving into whatever 1994 has in store for us. This is a pretty great idea, and the story itself works for that very well. But why is the video 26 minutes long? It feels really slow and repetitive, and you kind of just get it after the encounter with the old man. Given what actually happens in the episode, I feel like 15 would have been more than enough. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's fully boring, but it either needed to include more stuff or cut out some of the fluff. Yeah, I didn't really love this one, but at the end of the day, it's very easy to enjoy the effort put in, the bow it ties on everything, and that chilling final shot. The other main thing I'd say that Arcadia does right are its characters, or character. Ian's the only real character, but he's awesome. Analog horror videos aren't really known for their characters. The only one I've watched outside of Arcadia where I can confidently say the characters had me invested is the Mandela catalog, which I've already explained has similar structuring to Arcadia. Most other ones will have characters, yes, but they're more so cookie cutters to move the story along. Not fully realised people to get invested in the struggles of. But Ian Parker defies that by being a surprisingly great addition to Arcadia. There are tons of details that make him an interesting character and anchor point for this world. The way he deteriorates as the story goes on, the sheer number of times he pops up, his awesome voice acting from Frank Alonso. Personally, I love how he's integrated into the story. He starts out as someone calling about the Alaskan disaster, at which point I expected him not to pop up again. But then his importance in the plot slowly became more and more apparent, which was a super cool way of getting to learn about the mystery and the reality behind these creatures. That's probably the best executed aspect of his character. His background also gives us a fair bit of information on the dog motif as well, and suggests that the creatures were able to make it into this world even before Dr. Walker's signal, which is a terrifying thought, and I like how he functions as a way of seeing how the people of the world are reacting to all of this crazy stuff happening. He's a fantastic device to see more of the world through, and I feel like the story would be pretty uninteresting if he wasn't as present as he was. What else is there? Ooh, the visuals and editing are great! This is definitely the aspect that really makes me think this series should be getting more attention. Arcadia is as impressive with its visuals and editing as Local 58, which is already one of my favourites in that regard. There are tons of really well executed video formats in this series, and that makes a huge difference in the immersion and enjoyment you can get out of analog horror. I mean, just take a look at the Farm video game. I didn't even know how you'd go about making something like that. All of the extra effort that would have gone into designing this part of the video really pays off, because I don't think I've ever seen an analog horror video that looks quite like this. It's a fully realised and unique experience, all because of what's literally on screen. It's the same with less outwardly impressive things, like in any of the instructional videos. The slight wobble, the font choices, the way things fade, it captures the analog style perfectly. This is even cooler in The Forest, which is more unique and appealing while still capturing that feeling of TV shows we would have seen as young kids. Or Mandela Catalog Volume 5. God, these series have a lot of similarities. But anyways, the point stands. The visuals in this one are super good and impressive, and it's clear a lot of time went into them, and you gotta respect that. Overall, Arcadia is my personal favourite analog horror, but it's a really good one to watch that should get more attention than it gets right now. The channel has only around 25,000 subs, and the videos are usually in the 40,000 view range, and when you consider the effort that's gone with it alongside the many other great aspects it has, you should go check it out if you haven't already. I reckon that the series has some messy pacing, storytelling and originality, which is what makes me think that it could have had some improvements to tighten it up, but it's still got itself a great concept, great character, and seems to be going in a very creepy and exciting direction. It's great, and even though I haven't given analog horror ratings before, I'd give Arcadia a good old 7 out of 10, as of right now anyways. Great to see! So, moving forward, I think we've got two main analog horrors that seem interesting: Midwest Angelica and Greylock. I've only seen snippets of them as of writing this, but they both look super cool. We've also had Woodlands National Park mentioned, which I could see being covered a bit later on. As always, comment analog horror suggestions and I'll probably get to them. Also, like the video if you liked the video, and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more. I only post once every couple of weeks, so I won't spam your notifications. But with all of that out of the way, thanks for watching, don't accept their offer, and cue the outro music.